Hello, and welcome to Standing Strong for Marriages. Thanks for stopping by.
Okay, hey, what's up? Thanks for joining me again on Staying Strong for Marriages. Great to be talking again. Well, I wanted to read a verse. I'm excited about the summer. Seems to feel like it's ending, which makes me a little sad. We had a great work project for this lady at our church, and it was fun to get out there with the guys and dig the holes and get the power tools out, the paint, and build some stairs and all these types of things. So gonna kind of hanging on to the last few months. I don't want it to start getting cold quite yet. So well, things in the marriage front on a personal level have not been going exactly as I had hoped, and so I was sort of thinking about that, and I decided that this is a common problem that most people that are in some sort of marriage disruption situation are going to be feeling. Yeah, makes sense. And so I thought, well, Lord, how am I going to sort of handle this? And I just decided, I said, you know what? I think, Father, you've been in a similar situation. I have not been a big reader of the prophets. So today I'm going to look at something from Jeremiah chapter 5. Just pull out a couple key points. This is not meant to be negative, and which is why I often felt like it's hard to read these passages because they're hard for me to take. I don't know about you, but Jeremiah chapter 5 says, "Go up and down the streets of Jerusalem, look around and consider, search through her squares. If you can find but one person who deals honestly and seeks the truth, I will forgive this city. Although they say, surely as the Lord lives, still they are swearing falsely." That stinks. So Jeremiah kind of replies, I'm going to paraphrase, and he says, yeah, but I mean, that's probably just the poor people, they're not like familiar with the laws of the Lord. And like, let me go speak with the elders, and I'm sure that I'm going to find a totally different situation over there with them. Surely they will know the way of the Lord, the requirements of their God. But with one accord, they too had broken off the yoke and torn off the bonds. So it was the same situation, whether you were dealing with more like a very educated, scholarly religious crowd, or people that had maybe like non-religious jobs and their areas of expertise were in other things. Same result. So then there's kind of this talk about, some of the consequences of that, which is not good. I'll just say it, not good. Some sort of outside hardships that would come against those cities. But so then God, we kind of hear from him, why should I forgive you? Your children have forsaken me. They have sworn by gods that are not gods. I supplied all their needs, yet they committed adultery and thronged to the houses of prostitutes. They're well fed. They're like lusty stallions, each named for another man's wife. Should I not punish them for this, declares the Lord? Should I not avenge myself on such a nation as this? So here's where I kind of stopped and had to say, I don't know if this is the right way to necessarily pray or to talk, but sometimes when you're honest, you just say it in your most natural language. I just was kind of like, God, your life kind of sucks. Like in this moment, in this period, in relationship to these people in this city, things were not all happy and joyful and all is great and life is rosy and my beloved people are, under my wing and in my shelter and singing my praises. That's obviously, that had to suck for him. I mean, that had to be very, think about how hard that must have been. And so like I said in the beginning, I think that's one of the things that we can do if we're in similar situations to what we know he has lived through, then at least we can kind of go from some kind of, the sun sits at the right hand and all this stuff and some of the pictures of like these, great throne with the elders and some of these more like majestic, it's in this beautiful setting with this glass sea and all these things, like that can come to my mind. I don't know if that can, I'm sure that comes to everyone's mind at some point who's serious about these things. But in this passage, it's not all great and majestic. It's really a rough time for the Lord. And so he's actually, talking about disciplining them. And so this is the interesting thing. What do they say? Like back to Jeremiah, as he said, look, there's going to be these problems as a result coming from the Lord because of what you've done. And he said, well, they have lied about the Lord and they say he's not going to do anything. he's not going to do anything. Like, nothing bad is going to happen to us. Again, paraphrasing. This is Jeremiah 5. I'm reading out of NIV, or paraphrasing out of NIV. And they say, like, we're never going to see any armies come against us. We're never going to have any famines or periods of where we don't have food to eat, or any like kind of poverty, economic crash come against us. And then they mock the prophets. They say, the prophets, they're nothing but wind. The word of God isn't in them. So let what they say be done to them. So they're actually going to turn it back and put it on the prophets, which sort of reminds me of when Stephen was standing before his accusers right before he was martyred. I mean, he lays out this big thing, and he's not really apologetic. But he uses this phrase like, there was not a prophet of God that your fathers didn't kill. So at some points, they were ignored, they were mocked. And then maybe in some senses, like, people did actually, rather than fearing the words of the prophets that hardship, famine, war would come, they would say, no, war is not going to come against us. We're going to make war against you. We're going to take you out, dude. I mean, that's kind of how I was thinking it was going to go. But so this is what the Lord kind of says in response. Because the people have spoken these words, I will make my words in your mouth a fire. And these people, the wood it consumes. People of Israel, declares the Lord. So for me at this point as a reader, I'm kind of like, I start to kind of like emotionally check out. Like, this is too much. I don't like this level of conflict. I don't like these thoughts of this kind of punishment happening to people. Maybe people in my city, maybe me, maybe my family. Like, I really pray and hope God know that, like, I'm not part of this. But I also think, oh man, I mean, at the very beginning of it says there was not a single person that told the truth in the entire city of Israel, or in the entire city of Jerusalem. So now I got to come back and check myself, and it's like, okay, like, things are getting serious. Things are starting to feel a little overwhelming. So I'm bringing a distant nation against you, an ancient and enduring nation, a people whose language you do not know, whose speech you do not understand. Their quivers are like open graves, so their arrows, all of them are mighty warriors, and they're going to devour your harvests and your food, devour your sons and your daughters. They'll devour your flocks and your herds, your vines and your fig trees. With a sword, they'll destroy the fortified cities in which you trust. So the wealth will be gone. Apparently, the military is the thing that people trust. Yet even in those days, declares the Lord, I won't destroy you completely. And when the people ask, why has the Lord our God done all this to us? You will tell them, as you have forsaken me and served foreign gods in your own land, so now you will serve foreigners in a land not your own. So this is the predictions of the exiles to foreign lands, captivity. I learned it was like 136 years, I believe, Assyrians exile, and 70, I think 70, yeah, in Babylon. So one thing that's really hard about that too is that if you go back 2 chapters to Jeremiah 3, you get this really awful picture of what the Lord was dealing with, where, as far as I understand it, after the exiles were over, Israel came back and was repentant, but Judah wasn't. Like, he had to deal with this large group of people that they went through all this terrible stuff. They never got the point, and they just said, I'm sorry, in pretense, is what it says. And so one thing that has really been an awful thought is for him, like, to have to be married or like stuck with this, like, bride, you could call it, that was never really sorry, is never planning on changing, is still just planning to go back to what was going on before. I thought, man, how awful that must have been for him. And just not a happy time. I don't know what to say. Not nice. Not enjoyable period of time for him. Not, he must have been hurt. He must have found that very frustrating. He must have prayed and wished that things were different. He must have I'm kind of humanizing him in a sense, but I mean, I think that's accurate. You see a lot of where he is really distressed about what is happening with his people, that he has given a lot to, tied his name to, tied his reputation to, invested in, protected, given the scriptures, given the prophets, given the temple, given the tabernacle, delivered them mightily through all kinds of miracles and wonders, and this is the thanks he gets for it. So you could see what I'm trying to do here is just connect with the Lord. And probably this is one of the best times I have in my life because of my circumstances, connect or want to connect or be motivated to connect to what is his experience like? What has his story been like? How does he feel about things? He lives in a sense in the world as well. He interacts with people. This is not some made up fairy tale for him. He is a real person. He has emotions. He has standards. He can be betrayed. He can be hurt. He can be grieved. So I'm just like trying to think, okay, wow, like who are you? Who are you? What has it been like for you? And then maybe hopefully from that, some of these other things will start to make more sense. So announce this to the descendants of Jacob and proclaim it to Judah. Hear this, you foolish and senseless people. You have eyes. I mean, this is going to sound straight up like the New Testament. People who have eyes but don't see. Who have ears but don't hear. This is Jesus. If you're not familiar, Jesus is talking like this pretty consistently. And, having eyes but don't see, having ears but can't hear, having hearts that are hardened. And so this is an ongoing problem, apparently. Should you not fear me, declares the Lord? Should you not tremble in my presence? He talks about some of the amazing things that he does. Like he basically sets limits to where the ocean stops and where the land begins. And he can do that. He can do that. But he says, but these people have stubborn and rebellious hearts, and they have turned away and gone astray. And they don't say anything to themselves. They don't talk to themselves and say hey, let's fear the Lord. Let's give the autumn and spring rains. He gives us rain. He assures us of the regular weeks of harvest. So he feeds us essentially. Your wrongdoings have kept these away. So actually you see a tie between wickedness and economic prosperity. Your sins have deprived you of good. Now, I'll tell you that it doesn't seem necessarily like wicked behavior is always tied to poor economic performance. In my opinion, and I think we can all make a case for this, that people who are very crafty in business, they can find corporate tax loopholes. And some of these massive corporations, I think Amazon is an example that comes to my mind from a guy that I follow called Gary's Economics. But they're talking about basically a bunch of billionaires don't pay taxes in the UK, and now that they changed the laws recently, they're moving to different places where they don't have to pay taxes. Now they obviously still have UK passports. They can come. They can have multiple properties in the UK. They could spend 50 weeks a year in the UK in their properties, but say that no, they don't live there, or they could move their businesses on paper out of the UK, not have to pay taxes. Or Amazon doesn't have to pay taxes. Goods can be manufactured in the UK. They can be advertised in the UK on Facebook. They can be shipped via Amazon and purchased by UK customers, and yet that's not taxed. No money comes in to help the UK people on those sales because it's offshored and situated in I don't remember, the Netherlands or somewhere. So and then it gets worse than that. The insider trading that goes on with politicians, all the favors that the kind of elite political class is able to do to each other, skirt the laws, avoid going to jail. White collar crime is very, very rarely punished right. It's always blue collar stuff. And so you have this real wealth inequality happening, and it doesn't seem like anything really bad happens to people who maybe are doing some very deprived things. But this certainly seems to say the opposite. And I like how there are times when you can hear the prophets saying, like, complaining in this way, in a sense, in their prayers, saying, dude, the wicked do whatever they want. They get away with everything. They are, in a sense, there's a double standard. There's a set of laws for them, and then there's a set of laws for the rest of us, and they're untouchable. And God, like, where's the justice in that? How is that supposed to be how things are? But that aside, this is Jeremiah's not in that mind space right now. He is basically saying that there is a connection between righteousness and economics. Anyways, among my people are these wicked people who lie in wait like men who snare birds, and those who set traps to catch people. What does that mean? They're taking advantage of the weak. They're playing off people's ignorance. They are, I'm not sure. I can only imagine, but like cages full of birds, their houses are full of deceit. They have become rich and powerful and have grown fat and sleek, and their evil deeds have no limit. So they can do whatever they want, and they're not seeking to do justice. They don't promote the cases of the fatherless. They don't care about. This is some of the weakest in our societies. The young kids without a father, and that relates a lot to what we were talking about with this hyper divorce culture being pretty much promoted in churches. Pretty much being promoted in many ministries, and the idea that kids aren't dramatically injured by such practices seems to go like no one cares. I don't know, like somehow we have been told that kids will bounce back, they're resilient and all this stuff. Doesn't seem to be the case. And all these other associated problems, people, men and women being very, very injured by this situation. But here we're talking mostly about how that falls on the kids. And then it says like these rich people, they're not defending the cause of the poor. So that goes back into like tax evasion, even if it's legal. It's essentially wanting to put the burden of the social aspects of society on the middle and the poor classes, while the elites who have the ability to hire a team of lawyers and tax accountants who are savvy enough to figure out how to save boatloads of money, with that education, is pretty astounding. If you don't believe me, go and look at tax accounting on like a job board, LinkedIn or Indeed, or just you can go into AI and look to see how much those people make. And there's always a lot of openings for those people, especially if they're good, and it's always a high salary. And the reason is because they can literally, if they make $100,000 or $150,000, they probably, in cases, are able to save 3 times that in tax expense, or maybe up to $1 million in tax expense. The bigger the organization, right, the more that team of people is really valuable. They're not going to be that helpful if you have a company that has, $200,000 in sales, and their gross profit is $100,000, and after taxes, depreciation, things like that, the business owner taking home something like $60,000-$70,000. There's not a lot you're going to be able to do in a situation like that. Not enough to obviously buy a tax accountant. So basically it says, shouldn't I punish these people for this? Should I not avenge myself on such a nation as this? And I guess I'm concerned. I think a lot of other people are concerned. I wasn't before. Now I am. I didn't like to read this stuff. Now I'm kind of saying, man, what is happening? What is happening to our families? What's happening to our religious institutions? What's happening in an economic kind of corporate level? And well, here's kind of the kicker that really stopped me in my shoes and decided, for me at least, that this is where I need to end off reading this section. It says, a horrible and shocking thing has happened in the land. The prophets, they're prophesying lies. And the priests, they essentially make up their own rules. They set whatever morality they want, and then they give it out to everybody else. And it's just fabricated. They didn't take it from the scriptures. Who knows where they got it? They may have got it from like pop psychology or sociology or the universities, but they made it up. And it wasn't on the authority of God. They They come up with whatever they want. And this is something to end off thinking about. Then it says, and my people love it this way. So there's kind of our answer in a sense that we could get from this is like, why are things like this? This says things are like this because not from deceit, not from the trickery of the enemy, not from ignorance, not from poor seminaries, not from untrained pastors, not from difficulties in translating Greek text to the language that you and I speak. The problem, according to this, is that this is exactly what people want. This is exactly the insanity, the destruction of families, the hardships put on the poor and the childless. This is how people want it. This is kind of, this is a hard pill to swallow, is what we say where I'm from. That to get to the point in your mind where you switch from basically things are working, the electricity works, the lights work, the banking system works, there's employment, there's health insurance, there's hospitals, there's huge food supplies, there's vacations, there are multiple cars with even like modern safety features, there are all kinds of health insurance plans behind all these assets to make sure that in the case that there is any event, like a war, a natural disaster, a period of unemployment, a moment of disability, that the money still keeps coming. And so I think you look around, it's like, well, it doesn't seem like this is just like an insane, chaotic situation of moral like objectivity. It just seems that things are basically like we're doing a pretty good job around here and things are working out pretty well. And that's not what this says. That's not what this says, at least in these people's context. And so the question for us is, if you've been like me and you have trouble really getting on board of like, this is a corrupt, this is a faithless and adulterous generation, and like those types of comments from the Lord or just these prophetic pronouncements seem like a little unfounded and sort of, could it really be that bad? Are things really that bad? Type of thinking, which I've definitely had. I've definitely had, and I don't find it nice to kind of switch into this more depressive outlook or analysis or of things that we, which would implicate me, which would implicate you, right? Unless we have like a fundamentally huge shift away from what's going on around us. We like the evil. We don't give a crap about the poor or the kids or the marriages or anybody else or whatever. And that's hard to sit with, because what that means is it's probably not going to get any better. If the majority of people like it like this, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. It may mean that you're either in like this super minority on your knees praying that God would give you the fear of the Lord, that you would walk in his ways, that you would obey his precepts, that he would discipline us, that we would be set apart, that we would be a remnant and holy unto the Lord, and that we would not clasp hands with the ways of the world, and that we would, like we see here, God would give us eyes to see, God would give us ears to hear, God would give us hearts that would believe, and we would say, no, we are not going to do these things, and just to ask for it consistently, that we would hunger and seek after righteousness, that we would have pure hearts, that we would see the Lord, these types of things, that we could actually pray for those who persecute us. Okay. I think yes, like yes and amen. There's moments where I'm really like yes, but sometimes also my mind goes from there And I'm like, this is so messed up, this situation here, in people's lives that I talk to. And I go back and I think about how messed up a situation is for the Lord and how he must be hurting and suffering and struggling. And I don't know. It's really weird to think that he can set the boundaries of the ocean, but there are certain people like he cannot rein in. He cannot convince or discipline or like, why don't people love him? Why don't we love him? Like, he's the absolute best, hands down thing ever, and we're not head over and heels in love with him. We reject him. How can we explain that? And it may just be that, man. Well, you get it. All right. This is what I'm thinking. We'll talk to you next time. Hey, wanted to take a quick second and let you know about some opportunities that are available through Standing Strong for Marriages on Patreon. We have different tiers where you can donate. We're not putting extra content on Patreon, so all of it will be available on YouTube. But this is just an opportunity. God says, hey, I want you to be a cheerful giver. And so a lot of that has to do with the causes and the little parts of the kingdom that we're involved with. And so I want to let you know that, if you want to get behind marriages and helping kids, helping families, spouses, in the good name of Christ in the culture, through the work we're doing, you can be involved. You're welcome to. So $500 to $500 a month, because I actually really never have any idea how much money people are making. But anyway, you get the idea. I'll leave you the link in the show notes, and let's get back to it. Thanks.